We all live in a watershed. Before I begin, I want to inform you about what a watershed is, some of the reasons why they are important, and why we must preserve them. So first off, a watershed is any area of land that water flows across or through, where all the water that is under the land or on it drains and collects into the same place. When it rains on a mountain, some of the water will run off down the mountain and collect in rivers, while some seeps in the ground and form groundwater. But even though those examples play an important role in the water cycle, most of the water will flow into the ocean or a large lake in which replenishes water reservoirs. Now I bet you're wondering, what is groundwater and runoff? Well, groundwater is water held underground in the soil or in pores and crevices in rocks. And runoff is the draining away of water or substances carried away in it from the surface of any area of land. This repetition of runoff and groundwater repeats over and over again in a continuous process called the water cycle, in which watersheds are very important, and I'll explain to you why later. Rivers journey to the ocean. It flows through a landscape that is rich in diverse land uses, from lush forests and deserts to farmland cities and manufacturing plants. Each of these environments has an impact on the river's health. In natural environments like forests, trees and other plants build up on the river banks. They drop leaves, logs, and other things to provide food for other organisms to flourish, as well as hiding places which keep the river healthy. But on the other hand, human development environments mainly negatively affect the river's health. Grazing animals like cows, which live in unnatural numbers on farms, eat the plant life at the banks of the rivers that keep it healthy, and leaves a significant amount of animal waste in the river. This can gravely damage its health and cleanliness. Another thing that is not good for our watersheds are power plants. There are positives and negatives to them. A positive is that they produce power, and a negative is they release harsh chemicals into our rivers and the atmosphere. Luckily, out of the ashes of the power plant's failure in keeping the watersheds healthy, some have found a solution and replaced tons of power plants with dams, which are a great source of electricity. They use the rivers that flow through them to turn turbines, in which create electricity. It's also proved better for the environment because it doesn't release harsh chemicals or smoke into the atmosphere. Paved surfaces like roads also negatively affect streams and rivers by causing it to flow too fast and cause flood risks. It also picks up harmful chemicals and other human waste which jeopardize the river's health. Now that you know what a watershed is, I want to talk to you about the importance of keeping it healthy. Watersheds sustain life in more ways than one. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, more than $450 billion in foods, fiber, manufactured goods, and tourism depend on clean, healthy watersheds. That is why proper watershed protection is necessary to you and your community. Now you're probably asking yourself, why do we need to protect our watersheds? Well, think of watersheds like the circulatory system of your body, which guides blood into certain places like the brain, just like how rivers direct water to places like the ocean. Watersheds also resemble the circulatory system because if the circulatory system fails, it impacts the whole body, just like how if the river fails and becomes too polluted, it affects the surrounding land. And that's another reason why we need to protect our watersheds. Earth is covered in 70% water, and unfortunately, 40 to 50% of our nation's waters are impaired or threatened. Impaired means that the water body does not support one or more of its intended uses. This could mean that the water is not suitable to drink, swim in, or to consume the fish that were caught there. Some nutrients found in watersheds can cause big problems in poorly managed ones. For instance, sediment can suffocate fish by clogging their gills, and the presence of bacteria alone can indicate that other viruses and germs can be found in the water as well. Erosion, runoff of animal waste, and overflowing of combined sewers are just a few ways these pollutants reach our waters. Now, for one thing I know you're dying to know is how does runoff and groundwater have anything to do with the water cycle? Well, here's the answer. When the sun beats down on a water reservoir, it evaporates the water into water vapor. Then it condenses in the atmosphere to form clouds in which precipitate, which means to rain, snow, sleet, or hail. And that's where runoff and groundwater take it away. The rain runs down off things like mountains and collects in lakes, ponds, rivers, streams, or the ocean. Then is soaked into the ground to form groundwater, which replenishes the reservoirs for the cycle to begin again. So without watersheds, it would abolish the water cycle and ruin our way of receiving clean water. That's just a couple reasons why all watersheds are so important. There's also good news in this watershed crisis, and that is that there is a way to save our watersheds. Everyone must pitch in and conserve water every day. Take shorter showers, fix leaks, and turn off water when not in use. Don't pour toxic household chemicals down the drain. Take them to a hazardous waste center instead. Use hardy plants that require little or no watering, fertilizers, or pesticides in your yard to keep your water clean and healthy. So now you know watersheds are water that can be found on or in an area of land, and like the circulatory system, it is important to keep your water healthy by pitching in and protecting your local watershed. You also learned some ways our interaction with the land can affect our watersheds and our way of life. And now you know how you can do a little in your community to save a lot.
When I first heard the term watershed, my first thoughts were, what is a watershed? Why is it important? And how does it affect me? You may be thinking the same things. Let me ask you a question to show why watersheds are important. Would you swim in a pool where people are throwing trash? Every day, thousands of living creatures are swimming in polluted rivers and streams. A watershed is the area where all surrounding water drains and collects into one body. Watersheds provide the society with clean drinking water, reduce flooding, and helps the soil absorb excess groundwater. Today's society does not realize the important role watersheds play in the Earth's water cycle. The quality and health of watersheds have decreased as the population grows and society becomes more urbanized, creating more pollution. The lack of funding and management of watersheds have lowered the quality of watersheds. The average citizen does not understand the important role watersheds play in maintaining the health of our environment. Fortunately, conservation groups and organizations are working hard to maintain our natural watersheds and wetlands, and therefore make positive impacts on our nation's watersheds. Conservation groups like Delta Waterfowl and Ducks Unlimited are hard at work trying to protect our natural resources and maintain our watersheds. They are also busy trying to educate the general public about how watersheds impact their everyday lives. These organizations are mostly run by volunteers and funded by sportsmen's dollars. It is my opinion that these are the people who see the beauty afforded by healthy watersheds and understand the importance of preserving them for future generations. My family supports numerous conservation organizations. We enjoy the many recreational opportunities provided by the healthy watersheds. I have personally duck hunted over small rivers, vast marshlands, and flooded corn impoundments. I have fished in tiny ponds, mountain streams, and vast blue ocean water. All of these areas compose or are affected by watersheds. I have always been taught to give back more than you take. At this time, I would like to challenge everyone to get involved. We can all give of our time or funds to assist these numerous organizations. Imagine if every U.S. citizen donated just $1 to help with our organizations. Or imagine if every U.S. citizen donated $1 to help with water conservation. Imagine if everyone picked up just one piece of trash from our nation's streams and rivers. Imagine if every business created 1% less pollution this year. The world and watersheds would be a lot cleaner and healthier. One small thing can begin a big change. Theodore Roosevelt, one of the greatest conservationists our country has ever known, once said, "This country will not be a permanently good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a reasonably good place for all of us to live in." Let me tell you a true story to get my point across. Once upon a time, a young girl was walking with a friend along the bank of the South Holston River in East Tennessee. She slipped and fell in the river, which doesn't sound bad, until she realized she was swimming amongst hundreds of floating dead fish. You see, there had been a large fish kill from toxic wastewater dumped in the river by Eastman Kodak Company. I know this is a true story because the young girl is now my mother, and it happened in her hometown of Kingsport, Tennessee. That community took action, and the company is now Eastman Chemical, and they take numerous actions to protect the river. Portions of the river are now considered to be blue ribbon trout waters. However, my mother has never been the same. There are 2,110 watersheds in the U.S., and 1 out of every 10 is in danger. We all live in a watershed, and they affect you and the wildlife every day. Groups need more funding and support to conserve these watersheds where you live. You can make a difference. Become involved in one of these numerous organizations or do simple things such as disposing of trash correctly, planting a tree, turning the lights off when you leave a room, and turn the water off while you brush your teeth. If everyone in the U.S. did some of these small things, the change would be unbelievable and the quality of watersheds would improve. Think of the small things you can do to make a big impact on the earth. The lack of community participation to help fund or conserve watersheds is a problem in the U.S. You can do a small thing to help the quality of watersheds by yourself. The quality of watersheds in the U.S. has decreased and need more help and support from everyone. What will you do to save a watershed? How will you make a change?